Hello class, how you doing today? My name is Mike Schilling. Today I'm going to be going over should NCAA athletes be paid to play. I thought I'd switch it up here and give you guys a little bit of a PowerPoint presentation, and I hope you guys enjoy. This is for Kinesiology 777A, Issues in Kinesiology, and this is Dr. Jim Aves' class. So we'll start out with a little scenario. An NCAA college athlete sees his face posted all around the school. He is the face of the team, being interviewed for ESPN SportsCenter, and has his face on the cover of video games and magazines. However, the athlete's only compensation is food money while on the road and an athletic scholarship. Should this athlete be compensated more? This is the kind of scenario that we've been seeing recently in college athletics, and it brings up a question: should they be compensated for their time? I know some athletes at least, can be eligible for an athletic scholarship. In Division III athletics, the only scholarship that they can get and the only compensation is through academics or through other various methods such as financial aid or government help. So let's go into this presentation a little bit more. I'm going to go over the issue now. So what is the issue? It all stems from the NCAA, or the National Collegiate Amateur Association, which was founded in 1906 to protect the young people from the, quote, dangerous and exploitive athletic practices of the time. This group was put together in order to protect the athletes' right. Is that what they're doing now? Are they protecting the athletes or are they protecting themselves? Some would say that they are protecting themselves because they make so much money and there's so much money being thrown around, with the athletes not seeing any of it, but the institutions, the conferences, and all other parts are seeing this millions and billions of dollars. The NCAA has over 1,200 member institutions and oversees more than 430,000 student athletes. It's a large group. Not all 1,200 member institutions are Division I schools. They include the Division I, Division II, and Division III levels. As I stated before, Division I and Division II can give academic and athletic scholarships, whereas Division III can only give academic scholarships. The NCAA exists to ensure a level playing field in college athletic competitions. The NCAA prohibits payments of student athletes because they consider them amateurs. Amateurism is something that NCAA has been using to back their reasoning for not paying these athletes. But institutions can offer athletic scholarships. These scholarships cannot exceed the cost of tuition plus board plus cost of books and medical insurance. The NCAA is a little bit funky with the medical insurance part. Some of them make you pay, some of the institutions make you pay for their own college insurance, and the NCAA has a catastrophic insurance as well. If something was to happen, loss of life, limb, they can cover some of the expenses up to, I believe it's $1 million. Now we'll go over why this is an issue. It is an issue because athletic scholarships fall short of the cost of attendance because it does not account for expenses such as transportation and other basic life necessities. This means that while you're at school and at home, they do not pay for your cost of food, cost of living, electric bill. It can be included in some of these athletic scholarships within board, but it's not guaranteed. Athletes are not considered employees of their institution. That means they are not eligible for state or federal employment programs such as workers' comp or Social Security, disability for injuries that occur while they're playing the sport. If an athlete can go out and take their own insurance out on themselves. If you look at athletes like Rob Gronkowski, while playing for Arizona, he did take a insurance out on himself. He actually turned down the $1 million that they offered him after he hurt his back while playing for Arizona to try and go play for the NFL. Turned out great for him. It was a risk, but now he's making millions of dollars with the New England Patriots. That's just one example of an athlete taking a risk and succeeding, but he wouldn't have been covered by the NCAA if he didn't have this private practice. He would have never had to touch the field again, but he actually is very successful and is still playing at this time. With some more examples of why this is an issue, we got, like I said earlier, they're not eligible for programs such as workers' comp or Social Security in case of a season-ending, life-changing injury. And the people for paying these athletes would say that these Division I men's football and basketball programs earn millions of dollars through contracts, through sports programs such as CBS, TBS, in order to cover their March Madness or the bowl games. Those are multi-million-dollar contracts signed through 2020 at this point, I believe. According to the NCAA, college athletic programs generate $6.1 billion in revenue from ticket sales, radio, and television contracts. Most of this money, though, comes from the Power 5 conferences. It's not from the NCAA Division III level. It's not from the NCAA Division II level. It's from the NCAA Division I level. But they're not spreading this wealth over the three divisions. They're keeping it where it comes from. The NCAA pays the conferences for these teams advancing. Some relevance to kinesiology and who it affects. Payment affects multiple people. It affects the players, the coaches, the administration. These coaches can lose their job due to poor performance by their players, just like a player can lose their scholarship if they do not perform to where they need to be. And same goes for administration. Both on and off the field decisions can cost administration their jobs. Jalen Rose had an article that I read, and he said that college athletics can take more of an effort than a full-time job. This is looking at all of the time spent preparing with practice, both on and off the field, or in his case, the court. And some of this time doesn't even go towards the mandated limits of what a NCAA abided program can perform. Nowadays, they limit them to a specific number of hours that the whole team can be together. Coaches get around this by having groups of players perform, and they say they're in the gym for 45 minutes apiece. That leaves them with X number of time to continue with their practices. Like I said, payment of where this will affect is the players, the coaches, the administration, and even like myself, I'm an athletic trainer, it would affect us. They'd be treated more like a professional player. They're getting paid to do a job. If they don't perform their duty, could they get a pay cut? Possibly. These rules haven't been put into effect, so it is up to the administration and the governing bodies to determine, is it going to be a set amount of money, or is it going to be like a scholarship where the better players get, say, $10,000 and the bench players get $5,000? How would we determine this? Would it be in playing time, the performance on the field? It all has to get taken into effect. We'll start out by going anti-payment. This is where I thought I lied before doing this project, actually. As an NCAA player myself and working in the NCAA, I just didn't see a reason for it. But as I got to reading a little bit more about it, I thought that personally I'm leaning a little bit more towards paying the players to play. But let's go over some reasons for not paying these players. The number one reason that most people say that they shouldn't be getting paid is that athletes are getting their college education paid for. This is something that not every person in college is getting their tuition paid for. They're not getting a percentage of their tuition paid for. But the athletes have this advantage. They're getting in some cases, $40,000 or $50,000 of an education paid for. Athletes have items such as food, hotels paid for on the road. This is something that a normal college attendee doesn't have, that these athletes are getting. They're getting a food stipend. They're even getting their hotels, their room, their board, all of that paid for. Again, it's something that you don't see the rest of the student body getting paid. Judge Claudia Wilkin stated, "The difference between offering student athletes education-related compensation and offering them cash is a quantum leap." Basically, what this means is that them getting their education paid for and them getting paid to play is two completely different things. She actually ruled against paying the athletes to play, paying them for their likeliness in video games and things like that. The NCAA could pay the athletes for the licensing of their products, such as jerseys or video games, but not for their participation in sports. There's many different cases out there right now. I think it was about 150 cases at this time that athletes are suing because their likeliness was created in video games or created wearing jerseys with their numbers on it. It may not have had their name, but people were buying them because it represented a specific player. If you went to Ohio State and bought a number 1 jersey, it was a Braxton Miller jersey. It was a Price jersey, Terrell Price. It meant who you were cheering for. It didn't have their name on it, but people would look at you and say, "Oh, that is so and so." It just gives that example to these athletes, and they believe that their name is getting sold, and they're not seeing any of the profits. The retail market is estimated at $4.6 billion for the NCAA alone. This is an astounding number. This has to do with the shirts that they sell at the Final Four, the shirts that they sell at the games, hats, stuff with the logo on it and a sports team. It could be Notre Dame football. It could be something as simple as that. That's all accounted for in this number. Another one of the big questions or arguments is that athletes are making the choice to play at the amateur level. They're not getting forced. In some cases, however, it might feel like they are. You look at the NBA, they require that the athlete goes and plays in college for at least 1 year. They could go play overseas if they wanted to, but they need that 1 year gap in between high school and the pros. The NCAA also comes back and says that they distribute 96% of the revenue to member conferences and institutions. This is based on their advancement in things like as March Madness. The more teams that they have in the 64 teams that make it, the more money the conference gets, the more money the institution receives from the NCAA. The other 4% is said to be paid to the officials working for the NCAA. The financial status of the institution will not allow for the payment of athletes. You look at some of these institutions, like for me, I went to a small Division III school. There's no way without a stipend from the NCAA that we would have been able to afford paying each player $2,000, $4,000 a piece. It's just unfeasible. We're going to move on to the pro payments now. We're going to see some reasons why people believe that it is important to pay these athletes. Courts have ordered that scholarships cover the full cost of attending college beyond only tuition. This means that they can cover room and board, they can cover all of that, and it goes towards their percentage of full scholarships that can be offered to the players. Again, not all players, when they receive an athletic scholarship, are getting their full tuition paid for. It's only a select few. They can use partial percentages, 10%, 20% of a scholarship, and it goes to the student athlete. Coaches' salaries are an indication that professional and commercial enterprises are evident in college athletics. You look at some of these coaches' salaries. Take URI, a place where I worked before, and you look at their coaching's salary. Take the head basketball coach, for instance. You want to know who the number one paid state official is in Rhode Island? It's the URI head basketball coach. Same thing goes with Connecticut. You've got the number one paid state official is the head basketball coach, and it's evident in multiple states. If you look at, it might be their football coach, it might be their basketball coach, but predominantly most states, the highest paid person on the state budget is their coach. There's also an increase in corporate presence in college athletics. Go into one of these stadiums, go into one of these games, and you'll see banners for Dunkin' Donuts, Under Armour, Nike, all the little places around the school that they want athletes to go spend their money. They want the student body to go spend their money at, and it's clearly visible on the court, off the court, on the field. It doesn't matter. They make themselves known. So they're getting paid to put these names on the field or on the court, and it could go towards the athletes. Again, it goes back to looking at the coaches and the administrators. They make a huge amount of money while the players are limited to their athletic scholarship, and this can be taken away at any time. Good performance, bad performance, it doesn't matter. It's up to the coaches and the administrators. I've seen athletes get their scholarship taken away as a junior, as a senior, and it might not be the whole thing. They might have been on a 50% scholarship and they've got a 5-star recruit coming in and they want to give him some of the money. So they take it away 5-10% from each player in order to make sure that they commit to their school. In order to do the pro payment and do the payments, they would have to rid the amateurism from the NCAA because it is a multi-billion-dollar industry. They could take that away and then the students would be playing for money. They would be making more money. There's also a high risk of injuries, especially in contact sports like football. And the only thing that's covering them is the insurance. It doesn't cover them while they're out of school. They're putting their bodies and their lives at risk for the entertainment of the people coming that are paying to watch them play. And again, we talk about pre-2013 where athletes in the NCAA level were featured in video games. I remember as a kid playing the game, you might not have had their names on there, but you could download the roster and get their names put on there. Or you just would know that number 1 was so-and-so and number 2 was so-and-so. Again, I stated what is my position on it. Before this presentation, I really was anti the athletes getting paid. Coming from a small Division III institution where I had to pay for my own Florida baseball trip to go down and play for the school. We had to come up with the amount of money that it cost for travel, room, and board. The only thing that was guaranteed to us were about 5 meals for a 10-day trip. We never got the money for going out for lunch. We'd be forced to have that with us. It still was my understanding that I made this choice. I was the one that wanted to play college athletics, so I would have to pay for all of this. But after reading all this and seeing how much money is being generated and not being able to account for it all technically, my position's changed a little bit. I think athletes should get paid because they're at constant risk and do extra work for the school. They are performing for the school. They bring notoriety to the school. There are some students that do research and invent things that bring notoriety to the school, But everyone knows the Alabama football team, the LSU football team, Duke basketball, Duke lacrosse. There's certain sports that you would put with the school. If you said a school's name, you think of their athletic program typically first. Other than the Ivy Leagues, who don't offer scholarships, there are not many schools that you think of solely for their academics. The NCAA coaches are benefiting from the players. They're signing multi-million-dollar contracts. And the players should be getting some compensation. I don't know if they should be getting millions of dollars at this level, but they should be getting some other compensation rather than a scholarship that can be taken away at any time. Like I just said, the athletic scholarships can be taken away at any time regardless of their GPA. They could be the best students in the school and still have their athletic scholarship taken away. Yes, they'll probably have an academic scholarship if they're keeping above a 3.5 or keeping, a 4.0 GPA. They probably will get an academic scholarship. But it's still not fair. It can't be taken away for no reason. And not all the athletes are on scholarship, especially the lower levels of competition, Division II, Division III. Division III, you can't even give an athletic scholarship. But they still are making some money off of these athletes, and it goes to show that they can give back to these students. The NCAA just signed a $10.8 billion contract with CBS and Turner Broadcasting for solely their men's basketball tournament. This is the coverage of the 64 teams that make March Madness. $10.8 billion. Yes, the NCAA says 96% of their money goes back to the institutions and the conferences, but the athletes themselves might not see any of it. Athletes should get paid for the rights for the jersey sales and branding at the minimum. They shouldn't be able to go out and sell their own equipment because it is technically property of the school that they are going to. But they could go out and sign autographs. They could do things like that to make a little extra money to help their parents pay some bills, because some of the athletes come from no notoriety at all. Some implications that can be found: coaches and institutions will have to give up some of their share of the money. You look at some of the bigger sports like MLB, NBA, and they have a profit sharing system where they take the amount of money that it's estimated to be worth and split it with the athletes and the athletes and the owners. The NBA right now is doing just that, and they're signing multi-million-dollar contracts left and right because their net worth has gone up. Money to facilitate upkeep and equipment may decrease because it would be going to the athletes and not the institution itself. So you may see a lapse, especially at some of the lower level institutions. And again, smaller institutions may not be able to force the increase in payments without stipends from the NCAA. Again, the money would have to come straight from the NCAA for this to work. It couldn't come from most institutions because they can't afford this issue. How to resolve this issue? We could give stipends to the players between $2,000 and $5,000 a semester to cover expenses. How do I come up for this number? It's just a number that probably would go to help them with smaller bills or food and things like that. Again, playing a sport and being an athletic training major, I remember days that I would come back from a game and have to go right to my internship, but the food court, the cafeteria wasn't open yet, so I would have to pick up food on the run. The school wouldn't do anything to help me out, and it just took a toll on my wallet. It took a toll on me because eating fast food every day is not an option that most people want. This money would be given to all the athletes, not just the elite athletes, on full or partial scholarship. Again, there's there can be upwards of 100 players on an NCAA football roster, and they all would receive the same stipend, not just the people that are on full or partial scholarship. Another way that we could get around this is give the school the ability to give more scholarship to athletes and non-refundable scholarships. I kind of worded it a little bit weird, but I did it on purpose. It's not that the scholarship is refundable, but it can be taken away at any time. So it kind of is like a refund. You get guaranteed or sign your contract with the school, your commitment letter for X percentage of a scholarship. And then the next year they could come back and say, well, you didn't perform up to your potential, so now we're giving it to this player or that player. It should be guaranteed. These athletes should have a sense that they're performing up to their measure. In conclusion, athletes should get paid for their work while playing at an institution. The athletes should not have to worry about their scholarship being taken away if they maintain good standing with the institution, meaning they get good grades, they are not a pain to the institution, they're not causing more drama, getting in trouble with the law. It all should be kept under good standing. The NCAA is a multi-billion-dollar industry and should share some of the wealth with the people and the athletes generating their money. Coaches at the lower level shouldn't have to worry about be living paycheck to paycheck if they're making this much money. And the athletes themselves shouldn't have to worry about where their next meal is coming from or how they're going to pay for their transportation to or from practice. Let's go over some questions here. Do you think athletes should be paid? Why or why not? What are some solutions that could be offered? It could be the same ones that I offered up, or it can be something different that you thought. And do you believe that revenue sharing, like the professional teams use, is something that could work for the NCAA? I hope you enjoyed my presentation. I wanted to do something a little different, so I hope you guys enjoyed it, and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.